Welcome back. The battle for control over a key city in eastern Ukraine is escalating as Russian troops look to push deeper into Ukrainian territory. For weeks, Russia has been concentrating its firepower on the town of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region. Russian media has dubbed this city the gateway to Donetsk due to its strategic location. If Russia seizes control, it would be the largest Ukrainian city to fall since 2023. It comes as President Trump's efforts to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine appear to have stalled. Joining me now is Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S., Olga Stefanishyna. Thank you so much for being here, Madam Ambassador. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for welcoming me here.
Absolutely. Well, we're honored to have you here. I do want to start off with what the very latest is on the battlefield in Ukraine. Can you give us a sense of where things stand, particularly as it relates to the fighting on the front lines in the eastern part of Ukraine and Donetsk?
Well, we also see that Russia is enormously scaling up its military budgets and scaling up its attacks to the energy and civilian infrastructure of Ukraine. So these are almost nightly attacks with hundreds of drones. So these are like enormous amount of military operations and expenses, and also trying to speculate on the situation around only one stop of military engagement like Pokrovsk. Also gives us the sense that Russia is trying to communicate this way with American leadership, trying to create the narrative around their victorious engagement, but we read it as agony. So, and I think this is a very right time when President Trump has enforced the sanctions, and in a time of this agony is the best time to put more pressure on their economy.
I want to unpack all of that, but I do want to follow up with you. You raised Pokrovsk, a critical area in eastern Ukraine. Russia has stepped up its fighting there. Will Ukraine withdraw its troops? Will Ukraine cede that territory?
Well, just to be completely fair, just over the last week on the whole territory of active war zone, there was like 1,100 plus military and combat engagements. It's one of the spots there. So it's big, it's important, and Russia have already faced 5 times more losses than in any other spot of this 1,000 plus. But the narrative created around that is to make it victorious as it's only possible. So it's one of the spots. It's not an easy thing there. They're throwing 5 times more resources and the manpower there. And we're standing on, but basically whatever developments will be around Pokrovsk, it will not have a decisive turning point in the whole war, because the front line is really big and the nature of war is really different because of the drone technologies and other stuff.
I do want to ask you about the Tomahawk long-range missiles. Obviously, President Zelensky was here. He was asking President Trump for those long-range weapons. President Trump did not grant them. Do you think there's still a chance you could get the Tomahawk missiles? President Trump was just asked about this recently, and he indicated that it's not heading in that direction.
Well, I think there are like a lot of things in between Ukrainian drones and American Tomahawks. There's like a lot of different capabilities. Some of them are available for Ukraine through procurement and assistance from U.S. Some of them are available from different European allies. But when we are speaking about Tomahawks, I think it's a fair discussion to have, because we have been committed to ending the war, to peace settlement. Even my president, after meeting with President Trump, have been public in front of all of his population and all American people that stopping an existing line is an option. So with all of that, the war is still raging on. The attacks are scaling up. So being able to defend our people and impose humanitarian measures by destroying the aggressor's capability is perfectly natural.
You talked about sanctions. Secretary Rubio was asked about sanctions while he was traveling at the G7 summit. I want to play a little bit of what he had to say and get your reaction on the other side.
Well, there's not a lot left to sanction from our part. I mean, we hit their major oil companies, which is what everybody's been asking for. Obviously, those have to be implemented, and it'll take some time to begin to feel it. But, you know, I mean, I don't know what more there is to do. I mean, we're running out of things to sanction in that regard. Well, Shadow Fleet is an enforcement mechanism, and obviously sanctions have to be enforced.
Madam Ambassador, do you agree with that assessment that there's not a whole lot more to sanction in Russia, or do you want to see sanctions stepped up?
Speaking about two companies which have been sanctioned, there's definitely room for more. And as I've said, the military agony of the Russian war machine shows and should serve as a clear proof that this is the momentum to put maximum pressure on the war machine. We also see the decline by 16% in Russian oil and gas revenue even before sanctions were imposed.
Let me ask you about this current scandal involving President Zelensky's administration. The Ukraine's justice minister was suspended for his alleged involvement in a $100 million kickback scheme in the energy sector. What do you say to lawmakers here in the United States who may view that and say it's a justification for potentially not continuing to send aid to Ukraine?
Yeah, we are, of course, in a contact with a wide group of people from Congress and Senate. We have provided the recent updates. Let me just clarify. These are two members of the government. You know, these are not the people, the people who are directly in president's subordination. But that has discovered a lot of really unpleasant facts. So less than within 24 hours, President requested the resignation of those members of government, and they will be voted resigned next week. They were suspended, and those other people who are covered by an investigation, they are subjected to sanctions. So we are happy at some point that we have a functional administrative institutional capacity, and there is no room for impunity, whether you're close or not close ally to someone. And I think this is where we focus our efforts. It's not a nice thing, but also never in Ukraine's history we experienced that. That means that some things we created are really working.
All right, Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for your time. Please come back again and update us soon.
Thank you for your attention.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.